here, back with another article from Screen Rant, and we're looking more at Star Wars comics. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the title of this article is Star Wars Comics Are Becoming Required Reading to Understand Movies. That is a bold statement. So let's get into this article. Star Wars has always been a major transmedia franchise, but now, at long last, the comics are becoming essential reading for film fans too. So goes on, the Star Wars tie-in comics are becoming essential reading to fully understand the films themselves. Star Wars may be best known as a film franchise, but in truth, it's long embraced the potential of transmedia with the first official tie-in novel, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, published all the way back in 1978. This was technically the beginning of what will become the old expanded universe, with countless media allowing other writers and artists to play in George Lucas's sandbox. But all media were not equal in Star Wars because Lucas could not do anything he wished. So, invalidating EU content without a second thought. This was ultimately proved with Star Wars The Clone Wars, when Lucas' portrayal of the Mandalorians differed radically to that of author Karen Travis. So, going on, when Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012, it erased the EU from continuity, dubbing it Legends, and promised to usher in a new era where all things would be equally canon. Still, with all that's the case, Lucasfilm approach to tie-ins hasn't always been consistent. There have been high points with transmedia initiatives surrounding Rogue One, a Star Wars story, was unparalleled, but there have also been stumbles. In fact, recent Disney Plus TV shows have broken the wider canon with different portrayals of Siege of Mandalore, the history of Tatooine, Marshal Cobb Vanth. I've heard about that with. I think there's in Cobb Vanth's character in novelization, his appearance was a little bit different than what it was in The Mandalorian, apparently. And accounts of how Jedi Padawan Caleb Dune survived Order 66 to become Kanan Jarrus and Star Wars Rebels. Yes, we all seen that in The Bad Batch. So little by little, though, the comics in particular are becoming essential reading for the films themselves. This process began in the build-up to Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, when Charles Soule's comic The Rise of Kylo Ren told the character's entire backstory and revealed the truth behind the destruction of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Temple. The Rise of Kylo Ren set up Kylo Ren's entire redemption arc, revealing that Kylo Ren never fell to the dark side at all, rather, he was trapped by it, with Palpatine engineering circumstances in which he lost all the semblance of free will. Now, Lucasfilm is going further, using comics to continue the story of Kira that began in Solo, a Star Wars story, telling the tale of her attempt to turn Crimson Dawn into a force that would strive to bring down the Empire itself. Um, and it's so funny. We were just talking about this on Element Seven's channel. Thank you again, Element Seven. Shout out to you and my buddy Darth Chaco for having me on the Dyad stream. It was really fun. Appreciate you guys just chatting with me. It was really fun. And we were talking about Kira, and they were informing me of her presence in the comics, and the whole crime syndicate and this whole underworld crime stuff. It sounds really interesting, and I'm unfamiliar with what's going on in the comics right now. So this article so far definitely speaks volumes to myself, where it's like, oh, so there still are other little gaps that can be filled and that are being filled, other little stories that are being told, but in comic book form, that's still in the continuity of the canon story. So interesting. But this just brings a full circle for me. It's important to note that both of these are cases where Lucasfilm has no intention of continuing the story on the big screen. J.J. Abrams and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker writer Chris Terrio had sketched out the bare bones of Kylo Ren's backstory, but knew they couldn't fit it into the film. And their ideas soon became a Marvel comic, with the first issue coming out literally the day before the movie, setting up Palpatine's presence throughout Kylo Ren's life and even suggesting Palpatine destroyed the Jedi Temple, not Kylo Ren. In Kira's case, Solo, a Star Wars story, bombed at the box office, causing Lucasfilm to abandon its entire anthology strategy, while it's likely to do more with Darth Maul. Kira's live action story seems to be over. Still, the point remains that these comics are far more significant than is usually the case. I would agree with that. Comics are beast, man. Whole nother thing. Lucasfilm's transmedia approach peaked with Rogue One, a Star Wars story, but it's now become clear that that was just the beginning for some much bolder initiatives. With the popular Star Wars: The High Republic transmedia project exploring a time 200 years before Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Hopefully, these latest developments with the comics being used to tell essential stories that are necessary to complete the films themselves suggest the future is even brighter for Star Wars. So that's the end of that article. But in short, it's kind of a double edged sword for me. It really is, because on one hand, while I'm a comic book fan, I agree with the statement of like, yeah, you definitely don't want to sleep on the comics, because there are some things and stories that are being told where they fill in certain gaps of, just there's different points of time where you could, tell certain stories with certain characters, and it's just really fun. You know what I mean? So you definitely don't want to sleep on the comics, especially like, I know we have the book of Boba Fett coming out, but again, if you've been reading the comics, there's still a lot of time where you've been able to spend with Boba Fett in that comic book form. You know what I mean? Especially with the War of Bounty Hunters going on, which is absolutely crazy. And I even got to give a shout out to Star Wars Theory, and then Star Wars comics. The whole audio comics that they have on YouTube. Those channels have helped me over time to get caught up with a lot of the comics, like the Vader comics, especially, and some of these other Star Wars comics that I knew nothing about. And I was like, wow, let me sit back and listen to what's been going on. So yeah, man, the comics, they definitely you definitely want to pay attention to them. But I say it's a double-edged sword, because it's like on one side of that, I think that Star Wars should be this thing where it doesn't matter where you're watching, where you're reading, where you're playing, everyone can still understand the story. And I think for the movies, they should do that, where it's like, oh, so you mean I got to go read a comic to understand the movie? You know what I mean? Like, not everyone is into the comics. So you want it to be where it's fine to have some loose ends to keep people guessing, but at the same time, you don't want it to be so loose to where it's like, wait, this doesn't make sense, but I have to go read a comic or a book to make this make sense. You know what I mean? Have enough loose ends to where it makes fans wanting more, towards like, hey, if you want to know a little bit more about what happened on this end, then definitely go check out the comics. But at the same time, it's like you still can understand the entirety of a story in a big screen film. You know what I mean? But at the same time, being a comic book fan, being somebody who reads the novels, being someone who reads the comics, again, I am behind on what's going on in the comics right now. I will say that, but I am aware nonetheless of certain things that are happening. Being a fan of that, it's like, yeah, I totally agree. Don't sleep on the comics; they are fantastic. So, you guys, let me know, what did you think of this article? Do you guys agree with what's being said here? I, for one, definitely agree. I think that you don't want to sleep on the comics. I think they're fantastic, and yeah, man. And if you guys are new to the channel too, please be sure to subscribe. I see there's a lot of people that are viewing the channel that are not subscribed yet. So I really hope to see some new subscribers here in the channel. So be sure to subscribe if you've been here before. And we're going to bring this video to a wrap. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next video. Peace.